Well, everybody, I know a lot of us are now homeschoolers.
Mm-hmm. Everybody is.
Even if you didn't want to be.
That's right.
And we call this like accidental homeschooling. Is that the phrase that we're using?
I use it accidental, but it's reluctant homeschooler maybe.
Reluctant homeschooling.
Involuntary homeschooling.
Homeschooler in denial.
Yeah. We've been homeschooling for a couple years. We didn't really have anything ideologically wrong with public school. Like we thought it was okay. But it would just work so much better for our kids because our teachers weren't really paying attention to the kids, or they'd tell us like, oh yeah, we're going to work with them on math. And they wouldn't. We're like, well, we could do it. So we just started doing it. I know Ethan's, I don't know if you've heard on the podcast, but he's been talking about how they just jumped over to homeschooling because of the virtual school stuff.
Just made the jump.
They just made the jump.
That's awesome. Yeah. Like a lot of people.
So yeah, this is something that's on everybody's mind, and you've been an advocate for homeschooling for some time.
Yeah. So I had a similar experience to you.
Okay.
The schools wasn't serving my child in the capacity that I wanted. And so, and I'll tell you something, I don't know how easy it was for you. It was really hard for me to even contemplate taking on that responsibility.
Yeah.
But, over time, my message has morphed. In fact, I do videos on my website, and I did a whole series of videos that says homeschooling is easy. Parenting is hard. And it's really taking on the responsibility of parenting when you homeschool your child. It's less about it is about academics, and it was for me, but then I realized all of the benefits were not actually the academics. It was everything else that was of benefit, the parent-child relationship. And the school necessarily, whether accidental or on purpose, the school forms a wedge between the child and the parent. So you drop your kid off at school, and you say, here you go, you pat him on the butt, off you go. The school knows better than mommy. And then the kid comes home and he's been told something that maybe you disagree with. Guess who's going to win that battle? The school will. And then the kid thinks, mommy's dumb because the school told me this thing and mommy thinks this thing. And so the kid comes home with a piece of paper. Mom, you have to sign this. Daddy, you have to sign this. Sign this permission so I can do the thing that the school wants to do. And you sign it and you go right under the authority of the school in your child's eyes. It's not, it just is. There's nothing you can do about it. That's the way that it is. But then when the child becomes a teenager and you're saying stuff that the child doesn't necessarily want to adhere to or whatever, your authorities have been undermined. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember growing up, it was weird. I remember thinking this was weird when I was at school, that they did all these like anti-smoking, anti-drug things, which is good. It's a fine lesson or whatever.
His parents are big on drugs and smoking.
My parents were huge smokers. Yeah. No, not really. But
if you know about his parents,
I remember
really
even
fun.
At the time, I thought it was weird. It was probably 6th grade, and they were like telling us about, smoking is bad, smoking is wrong. Like if your parents smoke, go, hand them this sheet and tell them all the bad stuff about it. And I just... wherever you stand on smoking.
You gotta rat your parents out?
Yeah, go tell lecture your parents. Here's how you argue with your parents and convince them not to smoke. And it was it was weird to me that they were setting themselves up. But even if you agree with, obviously the cigarette smoking can be really bad. But at the same time, it was like the school morally lecturing the parents and using the students to do it. And I remember thinking that was weird.
Making you your parents' savior.
Yeah,
you better go save your parents. And then your parents don't comply. And all of a sudden it's your fault that your parents are going to die early of lung cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It's like, it's a horrible position to put the child in. And of course it's worse now because that worked for a while. And then it became, oh, sweetie, you can't have plastic bags because they go into the ocean and they kill dolphins. Daddy kills dolphins?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Oh, I've got that.
Yeah, like the arrogant, like lecturing, and you go tell your parents that they're doing the wrong thing. It's weird to me. So I don't know if that's more common now. I can't only imagine the kind of stuff that they're telling the kids to go tell their parents about now, with all the different culture war stuff going on.
Global warming and sex education and all that stuff.
Yeah. So what is it what would you say is the main problem with public schools, like how they're failing our kids and? Or are they? I don't know.
Yes, they are. Common Core is probably like the hot button thing that you could put a label on.
What is that? What is Common Core like?
Oh, okay. Common Core.
I know it's a set of standards, but it's always thrown around like, Common Core math is stupid, but I don't really know like what.
Right. So Common Core was, The idea was to make every student common. Seriously, it's in the name. Like, and who doesn't want that for their child?
It's like the opposite of hardcore.
Just basic. Make your kids basic.
It's a really boring style of music.
So they put these standards in, and they sold it as this way. Children will all be at the same level, at the same grade, which of course you know intrinsically that can't be. That's like virtually impossible because we're differently gifted as individuals. And so they put it through, they crammed it through. But the big problem with Common Core is it's the 9th overhaul of our education system in over 30 years. In under 30 years. So one every 3 years, each one costing a lot of money and none of them working because they always needed a new one. And so then you go, well, why aren't they working? Aren't these the educators? Shouldn't the educators know what they're doing? Mm-hmm. And so clearly not, because Common Core is failing. Test scores are down, and they promised us that test scores would be up, but test scores are now down after billions and billions of dollars spent. And you go, well, why would they implement it? Wouldn't their own testing before they implemented it, wouldn't that have told them that it wasn't going to work? You might think that it would have told them, but they didn't test it at all. And they just put it through. So it's like they bought the bus without testing the brakes and put your kid on it. And now the bus is heading downhill really fast. We're 27th in the world. We're the United States of America. We spend more per capita, per child for school than every other country except Switzerland. And we're 27th in the world. So if you have faith in the public schools, I have to ask you why. It's like there's no proof.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so much of school is just, it's social stuff. It's like, what kind of shoes is everybody wearing? If you're a bully, it's like, who can I give a wedgie today? Like, there's so many elements to school that have nothing to do with learning.
Well, and that's the second question that parents are like, oh, I couldn't possibly educate my children. I don't know how. And I go, okay, so you graduated high school. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, okay. But you think that you can't teach a third grader. So how good was your education? Because obviously the point of the education is to be able to impart what you know, right? But you're telling me that you can't impart what you know. And then, oh, well, come on. And I go, but you're willing to put your child into the system that made you feel incapable. Mm-hmm. Like think about that for a minute. And so, and by the way, like I went through it. I felt completely incapable. I was completely incompetent. And I'm not dumb. And I know I'm not dumb, but I still didn't feel like I could do it. And the reason I felt incompetent was because that's what I was taught to feel. And so we've all been taught to feel incompetent, because if you haven't learned what you know from a teacher at a blackboard, and you haven't been given a gold star, and you haven't been taught that you can now teach that thing, you think you can't. And that goes like across the board, but it's not true.
Right.
So did you buy a house? How did you know how to buy a house? Well, you went and learned.
My wife did it.
Okay, you married well, which is always, that's always helpful. You leased a car.
Yeah.
You had no idea how to lease a car. You went into a car dealership. You said, I kind of want to lease a car. Can you help me through it? And somebody said, sure, I will. And the first time, maybe they took advantage of you. The second time, you've learned some stuff, but nobody actually taught you how to do that. Or if they did, it was organic. You said, can you show me how to do this? And you found somebody to show you how to do it. And I'm saying to people, do that with homeschooling. Find somebody to show you how to do it if you feel that. I sat with a woman the other day whose son, people are being they're feeling left out. The system is like moving away. And I said to her, what's your main objection to home educate? Like, what are you thinking? What's the thing that's really holding you back from just saying, I'm going to do this for my son? And she basically burst into tears. She said, I just feel so I'm going to fail him.
Yeah. It's a very common fear.
And I said to her, but the schools are already failing him. You can't help but improve upon what they've done because you love him. Mm-hmm. And that's really the main thing that matters, is you love your children. and you want the best for them. And so you're going to shepherd them into the thing that makes them happy, the thing that makes them a fulfilling, that gives them a fulfilling life, the thing that puts them into service for other people, because in service we find happiness. And that's really the most important thing. And it has nothing to do with SAT scores.
Reminds me of a Chesterton quote from the essay we read.
Oh, yeah.
G.K. Chesterton.
Drop it.
Now I can't remember how it goes.
He always rails against public school.
It said something about you don't learn anything important in college. He said you learn it every day, like
Oh, yeah.
just going about your life. He's like, those lessons are much more important.
Well, I think it was Mark Twain who said, I never let schooling get in the way of my education.
Yeah, and that's one thing we've seen with homeschooling is like our kids are exploring the things that they naturally
Right.
are gifted in, and
Right.
not. I don't know how common that is in homeschooling, but it seems like they spend their couple of hours doing the formal education part, and then my son goes and plays guitar for 8 hours. You know,
Yes.
and he's a lot happier than if they had forced him into this
Right.
program for
Because
8 hours.
There is some sacrifice that's necessary. You can't just have ice cream for every meal.
Oh shoot!
Right. But,
what we're doing.
and so you show your kids that, but at the same time, you're not like pounding them with the education that is going to kill their innate curiosity.
Yeah,
So your son's innately curious about guitar. So why not foster that? Because who knows? Maybe he's the next guitar genius. Maybe he's the next
better than I am.
Degrassi or whatever.
yeah.
And so you want to foster that. But at the same time, you do want him to get the basics. Let's do some math today, and we're going to do some history because you need to know where you come from and stuff like that. And